Another huge reason for Maryland women's basketball's wins this season can be attributed to the emergence of young talent coming off the bench.
TSC's Ryan Martin has more. Ryan?
That's right, guys. And so far this season, sophomore Bree McDaniel has teamed up with freshmen Riley Nelson and Emily Fisher to give head coach Brenda Frese many exciting options with her rotation. First up, we got to talk about Bree McDaniel. As injuries have already begun to impact the Terps this season, McDaniel has stepped up as one of Maryland's biggest contributors in recent games. McDaniels earned the first two starts of her career last week against Niagara and George Mason with Lavender Briggs sideline, and the sophomore was ready. McDaniel shot almost 60% from the field across both games while posting 18 points, 4 assists, and 5 rebounds against Niagara. Against George Mason, McDaniel scored 9 points before a second quarter lower back injury forced her out of the game. McDaniel earned the two starts after making what is so far the play of the season for Maryland. In the Terps' one-score win over Syracuse, McDaniel called game by pulling away a gritty steal on the Orange's final possession. The takeaway was one of 9 steals McDaniel had in a 2-game span for Maryland. Playing next to McDaniel in the backcourt is the freshman Riley Nelson, and she has felt right at home in her first season in College Park. The 5-star recruit out of Clarksburg, Maryland, saw her playing time skyrocketed when the Terps traveled to Mexico for the Cancun Challenge over Thanksgiving break. Nelson averaged under 9 minutes a game before the tournament, but saw that average jump to over 25 minutes during Maryland's 3 international games. Nelson's 5.3 points per game on over 40% shooting leads a talented freshman class that makes up 6 of the 7 bench pieces Frese has at her disposal when accounting for injuries. And last but not least is Emily Fisher, who will be huge for Maryland's front court over the next couple of months, especially with Emma Chardon going down with a torn ACL last week. Fisher has seen an increased role in each of Maryland's last 5 games, culminating with a career-high 8 rebounds and 2 blocks over 29 minutes against George Mason. Playing almost the entire second half, Fisher knows where she needs to improve to keep getting on the court.
I think overall I just need to work on my conditioning and then hopefully get it.
And when her, McDaniel, or Nelson are on the court, the Terps barely lose a step. Maryland's 5 starters have averaged a plus-minus of 23.6 points per game so far this season, and that's a stat that doesn't waver when you look at the Terps' bench for some different rotations, especially these 3 prominent pieces. Guys, be sure to look out for this trio, and they could be used heavily going forward as Frese continues to utilize her depth with the Big Ten opener against Northwestern this Sunday. Back to you guys.
Yeah, Ryan, I mean, you mentioned Bree McDaniel, and
Despite the loss to Wisconsin, Hughes' squad still has a chance to make a run for the NCAA tournament, something they haven't done in recent years.
Ryan Martin is in Studio B to break down the path Maryland needs to take in order to get there. Ryan?
Yeah, guys, the Badgers are the #1 team in the country, and a loss doesn't help Maryland's cause. But there's still a shot at some NCAA tournament hopes. Maryland volleyball is nearing the halfway mark of conference play, being 10 games into a 22-game slate. And for years, the main goal for Adam Hughes and company has been a return to that NCAA tournament. The Terps are still in search of their first tournament appearance since 2005. But is it too late for Maryland this season? Well, not necessarily. Maryland has finished every season with a losing conference record since joining the Big Ten. Yikes. But with a 3-5 record, the Terps have to turn things around in order to get to 500. And history shows getting to 500 might be all that it takes. 14 out of 15 teams to finish with a 500 or better conference record in the Big Ten over the last 2 seasons have earned a tournament berth. Guys, a lot of check marks there. So let's take a look at what Maryland volleyball has done recently and what they'll have to do to reach a 500 mark and a potential bid. The highlight of the season was Maryland's upset win over number 16 Minnesota. The Terps came out on top in a 5-set thriller and boasted a 3-2 Big Ten record after the match. But since, Maryland has lost 3 straight, dropping to a 3-5 conference record. In order to get to 500, Maryland will have to go 7-5 the rest of the way out. And there are a few key matchups to prioritize. Iowa, Rutgers, and Michigan. Those 3 teams have gone a combined 2-22 in the Big Ten this year. The Terps would need to grab a few more wins, but all 3 matches would catapult Maryland into better position and reach that 500 mark. But more importantly, a potential tournament bid. Guys, Maryland will start their push for playoff positioning this Friday against Illinois, and a win would put the Terps in a great position. Back to you guys.